Hey guys, welcome back to the Brick House. Brick Van Go here with week 2 of the Celestial Rumble tier list. So as you see in front of you, we got a couple Pokemon who are going to be moving up and down that we're going to be going over for this week. We're going to actually have 3 Pokemon moving out of the must play for this week. So if you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're going to start things off with Mewtwo Y. And so Mewtwo Y had gotten changed this last patch as they introduced the Mewtwo Y, Mewtwo X, and he actually seemed to have gotten a bit weaker, Mewtwo Y with the counterpart Mewtwo X. So it's a bit interesting seeing Pokemon Unite do some of these changes and Pokemon actually doing a bit worse because of it. But Mewtwo Y also a Pokemon that does need its Mega and Side Strike to actually get online and to be good. We had it kind of relatively high this last patch, although we're going to be moving it down to the could be better tier, just in between Chandelure and Mew. And so next we're going to move on to Espeon, which Espeon was someone we had in our solid pick tier, although a Pokemon that has a fairly high skill floor to play. It's not easy to kind of pick up and play Espeon as it is to play some of these other Pokemon. It's also like extremely skill shot heavy and fairly weak against high mobility Pokemon. It's definitely doesn't want to be jumped on from behind, and as we see these map changes kind of benefit these high mobility Pokemon a lot more right now, as there's a lot more objectives that you have to be aware of and get to on the map. So Pokemon like Espeon do tend to suffer because of that, and we are also going to be moving Espeon to the bottom of the could be better tier, just at the top right now. Just not the easiest Pokemon to pick up, and sadly probably one of the weakest EV options you can play for this next week. Moving on, we're going to go on to Latios, who was our must play for the last few weeks in a row. Really, ever since he got off that insta ban list, he's been maintaining that S tier must play position. Although these new map changes, as I mentioned earlier, really do benefit a new type of playstyle, and some Pokemon that were doing alright before are doing much better, and Pokemon like Latios, who were kind of dominating the last meta, are not doing so well. And it's not too much because of the recent nerf that they did on Latios, but because it takes so long just to get online. Because you're going to be constantly fighting for objectives now, you can't just kind of sit back and farm while your team is doing all the team fighting or defending the goal zones. You constantly have to be there and present just to help out your team. And now that this game is higher paced and there's a lot more things you got to be aware of, it's just going to be taking too long to get online, and it's a lot less consistent than how it used to be just a week ago, right? So we're going to be moving him down all the way past the solid pick tier and just in the not bad tier. We'll put him just right above Armarouge right now. In fact, we'll put him at the top for right now. We'll honestly probably move him a bit lower as the weeks go by. Still a fairly strong pick, has a ton of damage compared to a lot of these other attackers, but yeah, it's just these map changes have not been doing Latios too kind. So moving on, we're going to talk about Glaceon, which is one of the more frail attackers in the game. Makes it a bit hard to pick up, and it's still does manage to be one of the best of all of the attacking EVs. It's fairly consistent to get online and has a couple point and click abilities, mainly Icicle Spear, that do a lot of damage, and once you hit that late game will start to shred your opponents. But again, not a Pokemon that's doing too well because of how frail it is right currently. So we'll put it at the bottom of our not bad tier for right now. Definitely able to pop off with this Pokemon, but not as consistently as some of these other attackers. So next we got Sylveon, and Sylveon kind of suffers right now from some low early game damage as well as mobility, especially when compared to the other EVs. It also has a rather weak secure potential. Its moves aren't the best for making sure you get that last hit, and you do tend to rely on other Pokemon on your team to do so. And once you're kind of playing this Pokemon who focuses more on zoning, that does require you to be kind of reliant on your team, and you know, one thing leads to another, and you start not winning as many consistent games as a Pokemon who is able to get those last hits. So Sylveon, still a really solid pick. We're going to be moving it down to the could be better tier though. Still, we'll put it above Espeon just because it is a bit tankier and able to survive, especially if you're going one of those lifesteal sets, and also a lower skill floor than Espeon, where it's a bit easier to pick up. So next we're going to talk about Miraidon, who was at the top of the solid pick tier this last week, although just like some of these other Pokemon who are kind of suffering from this map change, Miraidon is suffering from a lot of these dives that are tending to happen from these Zavoiks that are popping up more frequently, or these dive heavy all-rounders. Does not do too nicely against them, and also a Pokemon that is fairly combo reliant. You do have to hit your combo if you really want to, you know, get the max of your damage, you know, your Electro Drift combo. And if you do miss it and you do not able to follow up properly, you're just put into a really bad position, sometimes just completely out of position, and there's not much you can do, and you're just going to be kind of fainting because of that. So Pokemon we had very high recently, and we're just going to be putting him down to the not bad tier, just in the middle, right behind Gardevoir for right now. Again, really great Pokemon if you're able to get those combos off consistently and have a really great laning phase, although it's the fact that he can get abused so hard by the current meta just kind of just puts him down, and you definitely don't want to take into all your games anymore. So the last Pokemon that we got of the attackers is Alolan Raichu, which Alolan Raichu was at the top of our solid pick tier, and the thing about Alolan Raichu is that they have the best passive in the game for kiting the enemy opponents. Being able to do a little bit of dash, every auto attack or spell just gets you that much further, and Pokemon like Buzzwole just won't be able to jump on you because they're not going to be able to close the gap in time. Alolan Raichu also just has so much mobility and damage, and Electro Ball just being such an overpowered move right now. Definitely one of his go-to sets, and as the must-play Pokemon for the attackers has kind of left open a vacuum, as Latios is not doing so well as it used to just before the map changes. Alolan Raichu will gladly fill that spot and be our must-play for this week. So that does it for our attackers, and now we're going to move on to our all-rounders, and the first all-rounder that we got to talk about is Gyarados. So Gyarados, we had him rather high in the solid pick tier, although the thing about him is, admittedly, Gyarados has a fairly unreliable evolution. It's super nice if you're able to get it off really early in the game, but I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to get it off every single game before the 8-minute mark. You're going to get into the situations where you're getting camped, or one thing leads to another, and you're going to be a Magikarp for a lot of the game. Going jungle as Magikarp also isn't the best option, as you don't have that good gank potential, and it's still just such a slow and clunky moveset. It's not good in that jungle at that early game. So Gyarados being so easily to be set behind, and still like having a high damage output once you are able to get to that phase, we will still move him down just to the top of the not bad tier. We'll move him right behind Metagross right now, who has been doing a lot better these last couple weeks actually. So Mewtwo X is the next Pokemon we'll talk about, and just like Mewtwo Y, Mewtwo X is doing a bit weaker ever since the changes, and already seen as kind of the weaker version of the both Mewtwo's. It's definitely not a good position to be in, seeing how it is worse than that now. So the kit for Mewtwo X is a bit outdated at this point, admittedly now. It being so similar to Mewtwo Y, it is a bit redundant even running both of them on your team now that you can. And it kind of comes back now. And even though they're like separate Pokemon, it does kind of feel like Mewtwo X is still the troll version of going Mewtwo Y. So sadly, we're actually going to be putting Mewtwo X in our Brik position for this week in the very, very last place, actually replacing Tyranitar, who we'll be talking about shortly. But I don't know what else to say besides that Mewtwo X does feel like it needs a move kit change. At least a little bit of an identity crisis is going on with this Pokemon, as it's still just a carbon copy of Mewtwo Y in all-rounder form, and not able to teleport or able to close gaps as well, and kind of falls off in that late game harder than Mewtwo Y. Was just not a good position to be in right now. So as I mentioned, the next Pokemon we're going to be talking about is Tyranitar. And Tyranitar has been a Pokemon in our Brik position for a couple weeks in a row now, and this is mainly due to the fact that it has a fairly weak early game. It's not easy to get to that stage. It's one of the longest evolutions you're going to have to wait for out of any Pokemon in the game, which is always so annoying to wait for. And options like running Tyranitar in the jungle are actually not too good for the rest of your team, as your gank potential is fairly weak compared to these other Pokemon. You do tend to want a good early game Pokemon in the jungle, not a Pokemon who has to farm up all game to be able to contribute. So it's a Pokemon who's kind of hard to find his place in the current meta. Hopefully can get better in the future someday, but we will be moving him up just in the could be better tier at the bottom, just behind Dark Fist Urshifu. Next Pokemon that we have is Lucario, and Lucario is a Pokemon that it's so hard to judge where he really is. It's not a Pokemon that is going to be for everyone. He has a rather high skill floor. This is really due to the on surface low damage and in actuality low defense it has compared to the other all-rounders. Although Lucario is also a Pokemon with an extremely high skill ceiling, so we're going to be putting him just at the bottom of the solid pick tier, just above Azumarill. And again, not the easiest Pokemon to pick up, but it's definitely worthwhile if you can get the hang of this Pokemon, and has so much depth to him that you're going to be able to play for hours and discover new things. So next Pokemon that we got is Blaziken. And Blaziken is the must-play pick that we had for, I think, for the longest time that we had any must-play pick. And this really has to do with that high damage output that Blaziken has in that mid-game all the way to that late game. And being easy to use, Blaziken is a Pokemon that has a lot of multiple playstyle, and running items like Razor Claw or Aeos Cookie are all easily good options that you can run. However, because another Pokemon has been performing extremely well these last couple of weeks, we're actually going to be moving Blaziken down. And again, not because Blaziken has been doing anything really bad, but because this other Pokemon has been performing just so well. So the next Pokemon we're going to be talking about is Urshifu, who is also going to be moving up. Urshifu is specifically the water style Urshifu, having very high mobility and damage, and also able to just sustain pressure on the enemy team for a huge amount of time. Throwing him in the jungle, you can easily get your evolution on your first rotation, and then you can just start pressuring any lane you want, and there's not much they can do about that early game damage and snowball potential that you have. So Urshifu also going to be moving higher up in our A tier. Going to be putting him just above Cerulege for this week as a very solid pick, and one that I definitely recommend to pick up. So next we're going to be talking about Tinkaton, and Tinkaton actually going to be moving down this week out of the solid pick tier. Tinkaton having honestly rather low mobility and a really bad range when compared to a lot of these all-arounders. It makes it kind of hard to engage with enemies, and especially in this new map, Tinkaton has seen even more troubles doing so. One strategy that Tinkaton really loved to do was just kind of hiding in a bush and kind of catching the enemies off guard with some of these hammer swings, but because the new map now has a lot less bushes to hide behind, Tinkaton is not as easy for Tinkaton to get some of these engagements off, and because of that we're going to be moving Tinkaton down and just to the middle of our not bad tier for this week. So the last all-rounder that we have, as you may have seen, is Zacian, who has been at the top of our solid pick tier for a couple weeks in a row now, and this is mainly due to the fact that it has such high mobility and survivability, making it just a great option to put just constant pressure, especially in that early game. Zacian also being a Pokemon where it's very easy to snowball with. Throwing him in the jungle and camping a lane after that first rotation is a great option to kind of just get you guys ahead. Not much the opponents are going to be able to do about it once you get that early game spike going. So because of that, we're going to be moving Zacian for the first time into our must play tier, replacing Blaziken. That's going to be all for the all-rounders, and now we're going to move on to the speedsters, which we only have one of for today, and that will be Absol. So Absol is going to be moving up for this week, and Absol having such insane damage and mobility, again at that early game, it's just perfect for any speedster. And because of the high risk, high reward playstyle that Absol has, it does tend to have a fairly high skill floor, although even higher skill ceiling if you can get to that floor, right? But honestly, Pokemon has been doing very well right now, and because, as I said earlier, these new map changes are benefiting Pokemon with a lot of mobility, Absol has found himself performing extremely well, and so we're going to be putting him at the top of our solid pick tier for right now. I guess we'll put him right under Dodrio, although we'll see kind of how he does over the next couple weeks. So that's going to be all for the speedsters, and now we're going to move on to our defenders, and the first one up is Umbreon. So Umbreon having an incredible amount of sustainability and crowd control. It's kind of acts as a jack of all trade defender. It's able to do so much, able to be aggressive, defensive, or a supporter. And there's not much you even have to change about its moveset. It's more so just in this move kit that provides all of this. And so Umbreon is going to be moving up in our tier list. We was around the top of A tier, although we're just going to be moving him just above the rest over here. And next we have Trevenant. And Trevenant getting curse buffs recently, giving it an incredible amount of crowd control, being able to stun them, getting that gauge up to full, and being only a 2-stage Pokemon with such a heavy early game pressure, you're able to get online very easily, and at that point you're just able to 1v1 a lot of Pokemon in the game, especially if you were going the Curse or Wood Hammer set. So Trevenant doing very well these last couple patches, and we'll put him just below Umbreon for this week. It's very close between the two. Honestly, all three of them, it's a very close competition on who I would say is our the best defender right now, but you can't go wrong with any of those options. So last but not least, we have our supporters, and we only have 2 for this week. Although the first one is going to be Alcremie that we're going to be talking about, which has been moved down from our must play tier. And Alcremie is a Pokemon that is kind of suffering from a poor early game right now. It's not that much damage or pressure that you're able to put on your lane. It's also kind of hard to play with randoms, as you're not able to heal yourself when running recover, and hitting some moves like Decorate aren't too easy to do when you're not able to communicate with your partner as well. Alcremie being a bit more niche as time is going on right now. Definitely a strong pick when it first came out. Although right now we're going to be putting it at the top of our not bad tier. Perhaps we'll move it down a little bit more as time goes on. Although it is definitely suffering a lot from not being able to solo carry or provide enough support for the team that it really does need in this current meta. And a Pokemon that can support your team to the fullest is Clefable, the next one we'll be talking about. Clefable is able to shut down high mobility Pokemon, especially if you're able to run Gravity. The AoE healing that Clefable also provides for the team and itself is pretty incredible and allows your team just to fight at that Groudon pit for much longer than they normally would have. A lot of times you'll find yourself doing constant fights, especially at that late game, and Pokemon like Clefable who can constantly provide healing are perfect for situations like that. And again, Gravity, just a great AoE move to stop the other team from getting on any of your attackers or any of your all-rounders. That Clefable moving up from our solid pick tier all the way to our must-play tier for this week. So that is going to do it for all of the Pokemon this week that are moving up and moving down. We had a lot of movement, as I said earlier, with our must-play tier. 3 Pokemon moving out of our must-play, being replaced with Alolan Raichu, Zacian, and Clefable. 3 Pokemon I think are doing very well these past couple weeks. Especially Zacian, able to stay on top with a over 50% win rate no matter which map we're playing on. So a Pokemon I would keep a bit of an eye out if it was going to get nerfed in the coming future, and maybe you want to get your games out before that happens. But that is going to be the tier list for this week. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of these placements. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. So before we finish, I asked you guys last week how you are liking the new map changes. And we had a pretty mixed review when it comes to this week's. 54% saying that it is pretty good, but it could use some tweaks. That's an sentiment I echo as well. It's a good foundation, a good start, although there's some changes that are a bit confusing and some aspects that are a bit frustrating to deal with right now, which hopefully can get addressed in the future, although got both my fingers crossed on that. Next we had 21% just say it's a good start, not too enthusiastically. 14% enthusiastically saying this is exactly what we needed, and 11% sadly saying they want the old map back, although luckily it's there in our custom and our normal mode, so it's gone but not forgotten. Anyway guys, thanks for watching the video, and until next time guys, stay nasty.